Serpae tetra are often thought of as a mean or nasty little tetra. Follow along in today's video as I debunk that theory, proving that this is actually one of the easiest and most friendly community fish out there, as long as you give it the right habitat. The Serpae tetra is native to much of tropical South America. It's found specifically in the La Plata and Amazon basins in countries like Brazil, Peru, Paraguay, Bolivia, and northern Argentina. They inhabit the slower moving waterways like tributaries of bigger rivers to the completely still floodplains, lakes, and ponds. They're found in habitats with lots of cover like fallen branches, twigs, leaves, plants, and detritus pockets. The Serpae tetra, or Hyphosobricon eques, is deep dark red in coloration with a black spot, sometimes more shaped like a comma, appearing just behind the gills in the center of the body. That black spot kind of resembles a saddle, which is probably where the scientific name comes from, or at least the eques part, which is Latin for horseman or knight, referring to the spot showing up in the saddle position on the fish. They get up to 2 inches or 5 centimeters long. One of my favorite things about their appearance is when they get older, they develop a white margin around the anal fin. It's not always noticeable, but when they get sparring or darting around the tank, extending their fins, you can really see it. As they get older, the red will develop from like a lighter, brighter red to a deep dark cherry or blood red with the occasional glimmering scale. The fish you're seeing right here are still relatively young. I've had them for a few months now, but give them another year or so and they will be even more stunning than they are now. Related to that deep dark coloration, they do have a few different names they go by: jewel tetra, blood red, caracan, and the cherry tetra. There are a few different varieties. The wild type is what you're seeing now, and then some domesticated varieties including the longfin and albino. There's also the red phantom tetra, which is a different fish but is often confused with Serpae. Especially in big box stores, I've seen them even label them wrong. They are, however, a more timid fish with a semi-transparent body. They stay a little bit smaller and lack that pronounced black anal fin with the white edging. While not extremely obvious, there are subtle differences between males and females. The ladies tend to be slightly larger with rounder bellies and duller coloration. The males, slightly smaller, rock that deep dark red color with especially noticeable darker fins. This is often the case in fish. Over 80% of species, females are larger because they have to carry eggs, not only because they need the space, but because a larger body has a higher metabolic potential, which is required for producing the eggs, a very high energy expenditure. Serpae tetra are famous for being little butt heads like I talked about. They nip fins and chase each other around, but this reputation is largely due to the fact that people don't really take care of them properly. When I first started my aquarium service business, I remember going into a home where someone had 3 Serpae tetra in a 2.5 gallon tank, and the dominant one was just beating the hell out of the other 2. It was just absolutely destroying them with a vengeance. You know, it was like it was angry or something. But as soon as we upgraded his tank to a 90 gallon and threw them in there and added a dozen more, they all mellowed out. Simple rule to keep Serpaes content is to keep them in schools of at least 1 dozen and give them 30 plus gallons of water, which is about 100 liters. Unlike a lot of fish that benefit from the longer tanks, Serpaes are quite happy to live in tall tanks. They spend a lot of time in the mid to lower level of the tanks. It's normal for them to spar with each other, where they extend their fins and circle around each other and chase each other around the tank do a bit of fin nipping, that sort of stuff, it's usually just the dominant males that tend to behave that way. Now that you know a bit about the Serpae tetra's behavior and how important it is to give them a proper habitat so that they don't bully each other or other species, let's talk about how exactly that tank is going to look. This hardy species doesn't actually require anything too specific. The biggest things to note are space and hiding spots. I'm always curious what the internet says about tank sizes, so I looked, and most sites are saying 10 to 20 gallons, which is 35 to 70 liters. It's usually the stores that suggest less space because that means that they have more potential customers to buy their product, this fish. Like I mentioned before, I would recommend providing them with at least 30 gallons. Going more is not going to be a bad thing. They are in a 45-gallon tank right now, and it seems like a really good aquarium for them. This is something that people tend to get a little bit pissy about, leave comments saying that I should stop judging them for putting fish in small tanks. I don't know what I'm talking about. But there is a reason that this fish has a reputation for being mean, and usually people who advocate for less space aren't openly showing you their setups. Also, why advocate for less? Don't you want to give your pets a good life? Space is one of the biggest factors that will help Serpaes live a healthy life. It also helps the other species in your tank by keeping your Serpaes happy. Hiding spots are also a must. You can provide these in natural forms such as sticks, rocks, plants, leaves, or you can go to the more anthropogenic approach and just add some SpongeBob decor. While there are benefits to going the natural way, like plants helping to consume fish waste and putting oxygen in the water, it's more important to have some hiding spots regardless of what they are. Not to mention, Serpaes are a very hardy species. While you don't need to pull out all the stops for these guys, it never hurts. Serpae tetra are a extremely hardy species of fish. It's always a good idea to get the water parameters as close to the wild conditions as possible, but when dealing with such a hardy species like Serpae, it's good to know that they will give you some leeway. If you forget to do a water change 1 week or one cycle, it's not going to be the end of the world. If your temperature goes a little up or a little below, they should be just fine. Their preferred temperature range is 72 to 80 Fahrenheit or 22 to 27 Celsius. They'll usually show a little bit better coloration on the warmer end, as that's when they tend to breed, and the breeding colors are usually the most vibrant. pH, they like a acidic to neutral range. 6 to 7 is preferred, up to 8 is absolutely no problem. There are reports of them living in as low as a pH of 5. That's fairly common for Amazonian fish that survive starkly contrasted habitats of high water season and dry season, where they can get separated into stagnant pools that not only undergo rapid water parameter shifts on a seasonal basis, but also on a daily basis. The pH of these little pools that get separated can skyrocket or tank between night and day, and the same with temperature. These pools are going to go up and down very quickly on a really regular basis. KH, they do like softer water, being an Amazon fish. Shoot for 2 to 8 degrees carbonate hardness. GH, exactly the same deal here, 3 to 10 degrees general hardness. Quite a few places online are saying up to 25 degrees general hardness, but I would not do that. The Amazon does not get that hard, so it wouldn't really make sense that they would be a good range for these fish. Ammonia, 0. Nitrites, 0. Nitrates, kind of that typical range I shoot for most hardy species, under 20 or 30 parts per million. It's a pretty typical tetra diet. They are small community fish, nevertheless carnivores. They eat lots of aquatic invertebrates like mosquitoes or midge larvae, daphnia, small shrimp, a whole multitude of similar organisms, as well as terrestrial insects that make their way onto the water surface like ants, flies, little beetles, all those sorts of things. At home, they are extremely easy to feed because they'll eat just about anything. I'm a big fan of feeding natural foods like frozens or freeze-drieds. You can actually see what the things you're feeding your fish are. Maybe twice a week they'll get some pellets or flakes. While processed, these foods are nice because they pack in lots of vitamins and minerals, but when you read through the ingredients on the back, some of them can be packed with tons of fillers like wheat meal and cornmeal and that sort of stuff. Two of my favorite flake foods with less fillers are fluval bug bites and omega-1 color flakes. 2 days a week, they'll get freeze-dried foods like tubifex, worms, and brine shrimp. And then the other 2 days, I'll give them frozen foods, mysis shrimp or cichlid delight, which is a mix of turkey heart, shrimp, daphnia, and some other good stuff. You might notice that only counts for 6 days of the week. That's because I like to fast my fish 1 day a week. I believe it's healthy for them to have a fast day with such a protein-heavy diet, which is undeniably good for them as carnivores. It can also lead to constipation. In the wild, they're usually not eating as much on a daily basis. So in the home tank, it is more likely to see constipation and actually have like detrimental impacts on their health, potentially even leading to death. So that's where this fast day comes in handy by not loading them up with too much food every day. It helps them to clear their guts out. Serpae tetra have a reputation for being buttheads, like I talked about, but in my opinion, they really are misunderstood. There's lots of tetra that do well in small tanks. However, the Serpae tetra is not one of them. The amount of space will dictate the tank mates that you can keep them with. Put them in a small tank without adequate school, and they'll lash out at other species, especially small ones nipping on fins and causing stress, potentially leading to fatal diseases. One of the cool things about Serpaes, though, is that since they are a bit larger and more robust, you can keep them with either small or larger species. While not a large fish by any means, they do get on well with other large fish. That's really awesome because it means we can keep them with South American cichlids or tinfoil barbs, that sort of size fish, and they'll fend for themselves. Just keep in mind, if it fits in the mouth, it will get eaten. So make sure not to put any monster fish in with them. Tank mates like Oscars or arowanas will not end well for your Serpaes. They can easily get on with smaller fish, all the way down to nano species, as long as they're not extremely timid. Keep in mind that these Serpaes do move around a lot and cause some commotion, so it can stress out the timid fish. I have clients who keep Serpaes with shrimp and breeding colonies for that matter, so I thought I might get lucky with this tank, but they certainly made quick work of the cherry shrimp in here. You should be able to keep decent sized Amanos with Serpaes with no issue. For Neocardinas, it's kind of luck of the draw. Give it a shot. If you got plenty of hiding space, you might get lucky, but like me, you also might not get lucky and give your fish a really expensive meal. Serpae tetra are one of the easiest tetras to breed. They are very willing to spawn at home aquariums. In order to encourage reproduction, you should bump your temp up to about 80 degrees Fahrenheit and feed them as many live foods as possible. Perform a large water change, with the incoming water being just a couple degrees cooler than the tank to simulate a large spring rainstorm. This helps to trigger spawning because fish often breed in the presence of spring monsoon season. When the time is right, females will scatter eggs and the males will follow up fertilizing them. Up till now, the breeding process has been relatively hands-off, but at this point you'll want to be very attentive because these parents are not great. In fact, they are the worst. Almost as soon as the eggs are laid and fertilized, they'll start to eat them. Providing lots of mosses and thick mats of ferns can help to hide the eggs from these horrible parents. If you are really serious about breeding them, it might be worth setting up a separate tank where you can put one male and a few females. As soon as you notice spawning, remove the adults. Once the fry hatch, they'll spend the first 48 hours or so consuming their yolk sac, After that, they will need very fine food. I like to put in some moss from an established aquarium to introduce an array of microscopic flora and fauna. This process works well for the amateur home breeder like myself. If you're trying to get serious breeding program going, you'll want to raise infusoria or some other sort of microscopic food source for the first couple of weeks of their lives. At about day 7, you can transition them to live baby brine shrimp, which are extremely easy to hatch at home. Remember, the sooner you feed them after hatching, the better, because they'll have more of their yolk sac intact, which is really the good stuff that we're looking for when feeding tetra fry. At about 2 weeks or so, you can start introducing any food that's small enough that they are willing to eat. The more variety of foods, the better. And feeding them a few times a day is a great idea. Have you ever kept Serpae tetra? What do you think the most important aspect to keeping them is? Go ahead, hit that like, subscribe button if you enjoyed today's video. Put a lot of work and effort into creating helpful content. I really appreciate your support. If you want to support me financially, buy something through an affiliate link in the description. Thanks so much. Until next time, see ya.